Alright, so I don't know why there's always say alright to me. Like all my videos, like they just start up with this alright.
That's your trademark.
That's your signature. Trademark.
That's your signature. That's your signature statement. That's your signature.
So, the economy, state of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, and I do have again with me is Mr. Warren Thompson, and let me tell you, Mr. Warren. And Mr. Warren Thompson, let me just add by chance that he's an economist by profession, and he also into the consultancy field in terms of economics and all this stuff. We're talking about the state of the economy and stuff, and now we want to talk about, we were supposed to be talking about liquidity, but I know that we touched a little bit on it last week, but a lot of people, for the ground aspect, don't understand what is liquidity. What is liquidity,
well, the simplest way I could put it, in layman's terms as it were, is having cash available.
Mm-hmm.
Very often you hear people colloquially speaking to one another and saying, they're liquid or they're not liquid, means they have money or they don't have money, or they have immediate access to money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You may have, for instance, you may have cash, but it's tied up in, perhaps in a mortgage or tied up in a deposit that you can't break after a certain period, so you're not really liquid, although you have assets.
Right.
You have some sort of income earning asset, but it's not liquid, but you can't want put your hand on it tomorrow to put it to use in that way. So
right.
Liquidity has to do with cash available.
Right.
Right? Either for in terms of a firm or a business, it's the same concept. Right? You may have a lot of firms would run into liquidity problems if you have, for instance, revenue coming in. You have people owing you and it's not there yet.
Mm.
If you have immediate cash in reserve, you can continue running business, or you go to the bank or to a financiers firm, overdraft, or some sort of arrangement to keep you liquid and to keep your bills and your bills current and your operations going.
Right.
So that's really what liquidity is, having the cash at hand to be able to deal with your
but last time when
right.
we talked about liquidity, and we talk about cash availability on the market, but there is a central bank.
Right.
But
what we were saying was that there was, in terms of the banking system,
right.
I want to take you back a little bit into the history of banking.
Right.
How this business of the statutory reserve came about.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days of banking, there was something which was called a run on the bank, where some rumor or some incident would trigger all depositors to go to the bank to collect the money because they had fear that something was going wrong with the bank and the bank's ability to keep their money.
Right.
And in time, over time, central banks came into existence all around the world to regulate the whole banking system. And that stipulation, and it's worldwide. Different countries may have different rates of the statutory requirement in terms of deposit, the percentage of your total deposits to be held in reserve at the central bank, precisely for those cases where
in case of emergency,
right,
or
because
anything.
it's where you have access to money now to meet those demands. So that is how this business of a statutory reserve came about in the whole history of banking. Banks manipulate, central banks then manipulate that rate depending on how they want to either boost the economy or control excess funds, excess cash in the economy. All right. They also use interest rates and a few other tools. Right. In our case now, we're talking about, so the liquidity is really excess cash that the banks have that they force one to deposit with the central bank. And quite in our case, our commercial banks have reserves over and above that which they required by law to keep at the central bank.
Right. So
that is what is called the liquidity.
That is what they call the liquidity.
But in this. Right.
But what are they supposed to do with the excessive amount?
Right. Well, the excess amount, what they're supposed to do with it is to leave it there because they clearly they don't have use for it. And
but what will you do it?
Because well, okay. For instance, recently before the onset of the COVID pandemic, there was a situation where central banks, I think in Europe, there was something called negative rates of interest, where the central banks in Europe, there's a European central bank, the European Economic.
That's what all the European Union.
Right, there's a common central bank for that group.
Okay.
But each individual member state also has
have their own central bank. Right.
There was negative rates of interest, meaning they were charging banks to keep money at the central bank. In other words, too much money was coming into the central bank, and the bank wanted money going out into the system to generate economic activity. So there was something they were actually, because when you keep money at the central bank, there's a little rate of
interest.
There's some interest that is paid,
right,
accrues to deposits.
Right.
The banks were charging them, so in other words, instead of paying you to keep the money here, the banks were charging them so that there was negative rates of interest. To actually force them, hey, go and put this money out into the system to do business.
Okay, so if you bring in plenty, then we had to force you to get it back out into the system.
Right. So that's one of the tools. I remember it wasn't very long ago. So so that is really what this whole liquidity business is. The excess cash in the system, and cash that is reserved by statute to take care of any emergencies, i.e. a run on the bank, which is in the old Western days, you see it in the cowboy days, everybody rush like mad people to collect the money because they feel the bank doesn't have the money or can't meet the demands. So this whole thing of the standard reserve came into existence for that reason. Now here, one of the major sources of this excess liquidity is government spending, which finds its way through the system and then ends up as excess deposits at the central bank. Now, since 2015, the current administration has found itself in some severe economic straits, given revenue shortfalls because of the collapse in oil prices, and then now with the pandemic, it made it even worse. So that but with that year 2020, 2019 into 2020, they were forced to spend to maintain
the economy
and go pay all these benefits and relief out into the economy to help people who were affected by the
COVID
shutdown. Right. So what they did is a lot of readjusting, because they actually brought the level of expenditure down. But when they inherited the administration in 2015, 2016, the last budget from the previous administration was something like 63 billion. Since then, they have come down to around 50, 51, 52 there, and hovering around that level. So so what they have done, in addition to shrinking the budget, but they have also readjusted some of and realigned the expenditure to effect savings and to keep the economy afloat. So that we went over this last week, where with the shutdown in 2020, one of the measures the central bank put into effect was reducing the statutory level from 17%, the statutory reserve, from 17% of deposits to 14%, in the expectation that it would then find its way into the economy, and it didn't happen.
And
there was also other measures to stimulate the economy by increasing liquidity in the system rather than at the central bank, where the government actually offered $100 million worth of loans through the credit union system,
right,
for businesses, and there was another one for members,
right,
individual members, and that didn't seem to get much traction either. Right.
We will come to that eventually.
So all of this is you see, all that we deal with the issue of liquidity is trying to keep things liquid and keep things moving.
But again, and this was what we were talking about in terms of why the liquidity, if there's so much money in the system at the central bank level.
Money doesn't have sense of its own to get up and walk.
Right, but if it is...
Somebody had to move it.
So is it that the banks have not lowered their lending rate as well as the credit unions?
I think to without you see, we have to be careful. I don't want us to degenerate into finger pointing.
No.
What is the grim reality is this: things outside are slow. And continue to be slow because of the restrictions, right? So banks understand, and they would have a very close view of what is happening outside, because of course deposits will be coming in every day from their customers who have businesses and so on.
Right.
So they would see the reduction in deposits coming in from lower, slower business, so that their risk assessments and their risk averse nature in terms of assessing new loans would not allow them to start making use of this excess liquidity.
No, but the government had asked for...
Yes, the government asked, always asked. And what? You still have to make a decision. Listen, our bankers here are probably the best in the world as far as banking is concerned.
Best in the world?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our local banks, when there was the crisis on Wall Street, and the banking system collapsed internationally, and then there was a ricochet effect across Europe and North America and Canada as well. Our banks didn't really feel that, because our banks don't borrow money from other banks to on-lend here.
Right.
I remember as a student in the UK, a postgraduate student, I remember Professor Santos explaining to us that if the sheep farmers in Wales don't pay their loans to Lloyds of London or Lloyds of England, then the cattle farmers in Argentina have no money to get, because the whole international banking system is that reconnected.
Okay.
Right? Our banks here deal with all their funding and so on basically from deposits from their customers.
So that's why they charge
Well, I
know you wouldn't want to say.
But I mean, that's why they're so strong. Look, you remember Royal Bank of Canada? They came back.
Yeah, they came back and buy over
the
bank.
You think why? Because the fellas down here was doing a real good job in making money.
And Royal Bank.
And when I saw that, it upset me when. But them fellas, that was just before the collapse in Wall Street.
Yes.
Them fellas must be smelling a rat out there and came back here and they buy back Royal Bank up. Right?
Yes.
That is because of the excellent job that the bankers do of the risk, the risk averse nature of their assessments and so on. Very good in terms of comparatively speaking.
But if it is that we're talking about liquidity, we're talking about liquidity, and now we have the people in the system, that is the business sector, benefiting more than the man on the ground, because at one time I was asking the credit union movement that, hey, if the government gives you $100 and something million, how much money was actually spent out of it? And I was told, basically, let me say close to $1 million was actually given out in loans to members.
The government was actually, based on what the Minister of Finance said, the government was actually backing those loans all the way.
Right.
And with
So why the members?
I think a 2-year
memorandum, yeah.
moratorium on it. And I remember reading that the reason that they advanced was that those who qualified.
Right, but then
So,
you
so even if the government willing to boost the liquidity in that way, liquidity in the system in that way, and the financial institution still now has its qualifying criteria.
Right.
So if, even though the funds may be available but you don't qualify, that means that the money back can be saved because people don't qualify.
No, but some of them would have stated that the government is saying 5%. So if the government, not 5%, 0.5%, and the credit union offer loans at 1% of the reducing balance.
Right.
So if the government
regardless of what the rates of interest are, if you ain't qualified, no loan and pass, no money and pass.
But then how do you qualify if it is that I am a financial institution? No, but if I am a financial institution,
yes,
and you give me money to give members, then if I give them your money, I have to give you your percentage, but then I have to make my percentage for me. So therefore, how do I, as the customer, benefit from a pull and talk between those who get the money from the credit from the bank?
Quite simply, you don't. Quite simply, you don't. Because
so
remember, you're still going to operate as a financial institution where you do all your due diligence and do all your assessment to determine whether a loan applicant qualifies.
Right.
An application for a loan qualifies.
Right.
Good. And if you don't qualify, well, the money stays where it is.
So then what is the sense of taking the money from the government and you don't want to give the money to the members because at the end of the day, you're looking at your profit as well as the government looking at their profit?
I don't think it works quite that way. I think the government has the money available. You then make your assessment and then claim it from the government. So the government ain't going to lego money and give you and say hold that and give out to these people. It's not quite like that.
It's not quite like that?
No. The government has the facility set up and you, the credit union, will then apply for and draw down on it then.
Okay.
Right. The government is a little smarter than that. Right?
But so alright. So because we know that a lot of people may not qualify for the liquidity.
They have not qualified.
Well, they have not qualified for the amount that the excess money in the system, and I don't think that some of these businesses may qualify. I'm not talking about the bigger ones, but the smaller ones.
Don't mix it matters. The excess liquidity at the central bank is one thing. What we were talking about is what the government provided.
Right. No, they not mix it.
Right,
yes.
So
no, but the one that the central bank, that the banking sector would have accumulated and put into the central bank.
Right.
The banks now then will have to look at, okay, how do I release this money into the system?
Well, why would they have to do that? And they're making enough money for what they're doing already.
So what happens to that liquidity in the central bank?
It's still there.
But is it gaining interest?
Whatever little interest it does, they will do some sort of interest, I believe.
So it's not really gaining no interest, really?
It would. I don't know what the exact rate is, but...
But so the central bank does do investments also like the bank?
Yeah, the central bank, yes, the central bank would, for instance, I think, in terms of our the foreign reserves, and they manage all of those things.
Okay.
They have for the economy, like putting enough, for instance, the exchange rate is a managed float.
Right.
And the authorities have been managing it at 6.78, somewhere there, 6.79.
Well,
so how they do that is by pumping enough
foreign exchange into the
system to maintain that parity.
But
so if it should dip a little bit, they top it up, it goes over the withdrawal to maintain the parity. That they manage that. They call it through what they call there's a term called open market operations.
Open market operations.
Yeah, where they buy and sell, put money into the system, foreign exchange into the system, or pull it out as the case may be, to maintain the parity that is desired at the moment.
But let me ask you
because
this.
originally the parity was 6.33,
right.
which is around 1993, I think, when we moved to this managed float, the system of managed float.
Right.
And over the years, they have allowed it to slide to 6.78, and they've maintained it there for quite some time now.
But in terms of we see the foreign exchange. So let me just change it a little bit. In terms of the foreign exchange that is being managed to go to businesses and ordinary individuals to purchase things and bring it into the country and all different things, is Trinidad and Tobago really producing enough products or bringing out products that will generate back this foreign exchange to bring it back in the country? Because I keep saying that the Manufacturing Association keeps saying that they want more foreign exchange. Everybody wants foreign exchange. Well, I'm talking about the big businesses. But I'm not seeing any of them really saying, well, okay, we have earned so much and so much and so much in foreign exchange and put it back into the system. But everybody keeps sending it out. And is it that they're sending it out and sending it somewhere else? And somebody else benefiting and not the people in the country of Trinidad and Tobago where it's supposed to be coming back into, so that they could get it back again for it to keep turning over in the economy? I just asking the question.
I don't understand the structure of this economy.
Well, the structure of this economy is bad, eh?
No, well, what I mean is, you have a handful of entities who actually earns the foreign exchange. Every other entity and individual demands foreign exchange.
Right.
Now, we have what you call a monoculture, which is one sector which makes or earns all the foreign exchange. Which is, in our case, it is not the hydrocarbon sector.
Right.
Oil and latterly, of course, is more a gas economy than oil economy. When we have a small, like, manufacturing sector,
right,
which has captured and cornered the CARICOM market. So those basically are your foreign exchange earning entities. But the manufacturing sector, the light manufacturing sector, they need foreign exchange to be able to manufacture and then export.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of, there's a significant percentage of their input requires foreign exchange before they could complete whatever products they make for export.
Right.
So that, and then everything else, food, agriculture, everything else, you need the foreign exchange to bring in all your stuff. Right?
Well,
the distribution sector, which is basically your wholesale retail sector, they bring in, they need the foreign exchange to import all their goods. All your malls and all your price masters and all these things, all these shopping,
but I being honest with you,
they sell payment foreign exchange.
No, but
and in the case of people like demand foreign exchange,
okay.
use foreign exchange, sorry. And in the case of some of these foreign-owned franchises, the profits have to be repatriated. So like all these franchises here, the KFCs, the what have you,
right,
the franchise.
But is it that the government need to look at some other countries and put a cap on how much foreign exchange leaves this country?
Well, in a sense, that has been happening, because without going the classical economic way of the economic theory by going into a devaluation, which is basically the rule for adjusting the economy.
Right.
The government has not done that, and which is one of the recommendations coming out of the IMF staff report from a while ago. I think it's staff report number 4, which was the last report they did here. And the government has not done that because they don't think, the government didn't think that that was the way to go.
Right.
It's in the IMF staff report. So what has been happening is that obviously the whatever is available is scarce and hard to get.
Right.
And in that way, it is controlling how much goods is imported.
Right.
How much is imported, right? Because one of the things you have to understand is that if you change the price of the foreign exchange because it is scarce and we're earning less, which is how devaluations come about. So the adjustment is in the devaluation of the dollar. If we hold it steady at what the rate we have now, which is 6.75, 6.789 something, you're not going to get the inflation that comes about from devaluation.
Right.
And one of the points I want to make here, when devaluing the dollar, in other words, making things more expensive, is not going to reduce the demand for the foreign exchange, because that is a constant.
Say that again, say that you're confused with it.
All right. Standard economic theory, if price goes up, demand should fall.
Right.
So if the price of the dollar goes up, meaning the price of the US dollar goes up, meaning it costs you more TT dollars to get $1 US.
Right.
It means the demand for the US dollar should drop. That is not going to happen. There's a concept in economics that they call elasticity, meaning if you increase by, let us say, a percentage, let us say, by a certain percentage, the change up or down is going to be by a percentage greater than the percentage you have actually increased it by. Right. So that hence the term elasticity. So you price falls by 10%, demand supply will increase by about 20%, which is like 2 to 1.
Right.
If let us say your price falls by 10%, but your supply doesn't fall by a greater amount, it remains steady. It means it is inelastic, it can change, it can stretch.
Right.
It's the same thing with demand. If the demand for a good is based on the price, and the price goes up, it means the demand will fall off by an amount greater than the percentage than that of the price increase, which means it is elastic.
Right.
And vice versa, if the price goes down, then the demand should go up by a percentage greater than the percentage by which it fell. When the demand for foreign exchange, whether it reach 6.78 or 7.78 or 8.888, the demand for foreign exchange ain't going to move. So things will just keep getting more and more expensive.
But
overnight, with the stroke of the pen. And here they cut us with that.
With the stroke of the pen?
Yeah, well, if the government get up in the morning and announce that the dollar devalued from 6.78 to 7.78, what do you think happened overnight? By the time you wake up in the morning, you can't buy a loaf of bread. The shopkeeper fixed that already, and the stock they had is from the pre-devaluation price. By the time you wake up in the morning and you go for a bread, it's $14 again for a sandwich loaf. That is what I mean.
But tell me something. But let me ask this question.
So the government has been controlling things by keeping that,
the dollar floating.
At that steady level.
Right.
The availability of foreign exchange has become, of course, very difficult and very tight.
But then why it is you have a certain business sector in Trinidad and Tobago calling for the devaluation of the dollar?
Yeah,
if they know for a fact that the price of the goods is going to go up and therefore the man on the ground will not be able to buy these goods.
But obviously they will. If you have a warehouse full of goods at 6.78,
right,
and overnight the government say 7.7, you sell that warehouse full of goods, you sell that at 6.7 plus your markup. You put it on your 7.7 markup on goods at that old value.
Right.
Good. You're going to get a lot of what you call there's a term excuse me, but it's price gouging.
Right.
Right. And you just have a sort of escalating prices be escalated out of control.
But no, but then why would the business sector? Because there are a number of business sectors.
A lot of people, but a lot of people have money put away for people to make a killing in the conversion, if the devaluation should come. There are people with money outside waiting for that. There are people with money here highway waiting for that.
So is it a deliberate? So wait. So is it a deliberate attempt to manipulate the system so that they will benefit and the man on the ground will have to spend more?
Exactly. Listen. One thing I give this administration for, not just with this issue of devaluation, but on many other issues, they had the balls to stand up and take firm decisions and not bend to populist views. Right?
But
it could cost you popularity at the polls in a few years, but they have demonstrated the ability to say, hey, we feel we have done the work, we have done the due diligence, we feel we on solid ground, and they're standing by the decision. And listen, we have found ourselves in Trinidad and Tobago at this point because a lot of decisions were influenced by wanting to be popular at the poll.
Right.
Winning election. Right? So when election time comes around, you always say, well, what they give you? They ain't give you nothing, they ain't give you nothing. So
well, they don't give me nothing.
Well, you see what I mean? So me voting for them, I gotta stay home.
No, I'll still vote, but you ain't give me nothing. But the Republic general consensus is.
So this is the culture we have.
Yes.
We have engendered since independence.
Yes.
What they give me. And this is the thing. If the shoe had been on the other foot in 2020 August, and it was 1921,
yes,
the other way around, right?
1920, it's 23.
It was 20. It's 2219. Sorry,
yeah,
2219. Right. So they were 2219 the other way, where the other side had got 22, and these people had gone into the opposition. They're faced with the same conundrum, you know. But they have no money. And you cannot, listen, you could talk, all the populist talk you talk when you're in your opposition bench. Oh, this, that, they take away this, they take away that, and everything going wrong. When you get inside there, and you call the central bank and find out what the position is, and you talk to the controller of accounts, and the cabinet, they keep in tabs every day on what the balances are. Well, you can't say give me this, give me this, give me this.
Well,
that is reality. Which would bring us now to the other issue of whether they should start sending home people or not.
Well, that is another thing by itself.
Because some people have been, some people have begun to make those statements. Those statements have been finding their way in the press from some commentators and analysts and so on.
But, and again, so it is a deliberate attempt.
I don't know if it is deliberate.
No, I don't want it to beat from the bush, you know.
You have to be careful. Listen, you have to be careful to make those kind of drastic statements. And I don't want to go there.
Well, it's not me saying it, you know, it's the so-called economists.
No, this is about a deliberate attempt.
Well, one has to think about that, because why it is would one come to the public domain and say, devalue the dollar, and devalue the dollar, devalue the dollar, devalue the dollar?
Because they believe that is probably the correct thing to do based on all their
why? But if you
theory and knowledge and experience.
But if you look, Mr. Thompson. No, but if you telling me.
All right. Let me give you. Let me draw an example from our neighbor just up there with Barbados.
Yeah.
It's a tourist economy.
Right.
And tourism has been hit very hard with this pandemic.
Yes.
The new administration, Mia Motley-led new administration, came in, they won all, I think it's about 20 seats in Barbados or 24.
Yeah.
They won all. She won all. They lick up the last government. Lost the country.
No,
I think eventually one or two fellows crossed the floor and went over, so they now have some
form of our opposition.
Right.
But it's really the government.
Right. But the very first thing Mia Mottley made very clear when she got into power, she was not interfering with the exchange rate.
Right.
She made that very clear.
And
they have less ground to stand on. They may have no oil and gas.
well, hold up.
And she said, hey, I'm not moving that the rate of exchange. I'm leaving it.
Well, hold up.
She has been dealing with all those problems in Barbados. Otherwise.
Well, I want to stop there because because I don't want to get them too much, and then they say, but why it is the fearless warrior going down a road of trying to make the population change the focus from just devaluing the dollar, because that's the whole cry, you know. But I want to look at in terms of in part 3 of the economy.
Let me throw something for you before you introduce the part 3.
Right.
Let me throw something at you. Zimbabwe and next door in Venezuela. Don't go.
Right.
I think Venezuela now toying with the idea of what they call dollarization, making the US dollar the official exchange currency in Venezuela. Zimbabwe did it when the Zimbabwe, whatever I think it was the Zimbabwe dollar went down to $1 million to $1. Crazy, just like Venezuela. And they were actually using the US dollar as official currency. Some countries, quite a few countries in the world don't use any national currency. They just use the US dollar and call that George. Because that in itself is stability. The US dollar is the US dollar.
Yeah, but if the US dollar crash,
nobody, you see, if you using the US dollar, you crash against what?
Well, remember
against other currencies?
Yeah.
Everybody want to do business with the United States.
Well, but China is now emerging.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice issue you raised.
Yeah.
Very, very nice issue you raised. And that didn't happen overnight.
No.
And a lot of people didn't see it, or they pretended not to
or was it
understand.
Or was it that they were naive to what is going to happen, and that's why you see
naive or probably arrogant.
Well, you know why? You know why? No, but you know why in part? You know why in the next part? Because we had to talk about the Chinese and how they know. Huh?
You better.
No, but
you know you can't go in there and ask them anything about anybody bank account as you can now with the Swiss bank. You know, Switzerland was known as the bankers of the world.
Yes.
And a lot of these dictators and
people used to send the money there
and hide their money there, and you let us say some dictator somewhere in the developed part of the world gets overthrown, and a new government or a democratically elected government comes into office and goes to the Swiss bank to find out how much money this dictator stole and stashed away there. You're not getting that information.
But hold on.
Right?
Hold on.
The Chinese like that. No, if you go down, you can ask them not about nobody business.
No.
With the Swiss bank, through pressure over the years and so on, they have begun to cooperate a little more with people, with all these anti-corruption legislation and agreements and so on.
Before I wrap up, and you talk about the Swiss bank. No, who is the Swiss? Not in Switzerland?
Yeah, Switzerland, yeah.
And isn't Switzerland part of the, what we call the Commonwealth, or Switzerland?
No, Switzerland is an independent country.
No, they're independent.
European Union?
But they're part of the European Union. Who they fall under?
I'm not quite sure. But they are very independent, and they have had that neutrality. They've always maintained neutrality. But hence they were able to earn the sobriquet as bankers to the world.
Well, hold on.
Because they had that trust. Everybody could
trust. They had that trust, right?
Yeah.
But here the thing, and this is why I want to go to part 3 now of the state of the economy, because we talked about the dictatorship of some of these people when they hide their money there. Right, and there's
as I said, that has been changed. You know, the Swiss have now been
they open up now and
encouraged to cooperate.
To cooperate. Now, if it was another country, they put sanctions. But we want to touch on that, and we want to touch on the public service, and whether or not if there should be reduction in the public service, or should they take a cut in salary? Because remember, some of them still working on 2012, some of them working on 2013, 2009, no answer yet. And still yet they're still waiting for a pay increase. And if they cut their salary, what would that mean for the economy and what would that mean for the workers? And three, let's talk the China economy. Now, it gets
the only economy that has been growing during the pandemic. Eh?
Well,
one of the very few, I shouldn't say the only, one of the very, very few economies which has actually had economic growth during the pandemic, the last fiscal year, 2020.
Well, you know something, when the COVID came, and I heard the Prime Minister said, and I heard the world leaders, not the Prime Minister, the world leaders said we have to lock down the world, lock down countries and things. And I said, well, wait now, but if you lock down countries, therefore, and you close off schools, therefore parents will be home, therefore you will have a drop in the economy, and therefore stocks will start to drop because confidence in terms of the stock market will start to drop. And therefore I was telling people, because I used to be doing my live every day religiously, go and buy the stocks on the stock market, and because they had plummeted to all-time record low, nobody didn't study me. Because everybody said, nah, that ain't no thing. Why China was easy, buying up stock here and there everywhere. In 200 and something countries, they get away with mass murder without a gun, because they make sure the stocks drop and they bought out all the companies. Let me leave it for part 3. And that is going to be where people will take stock and realize that they may have been fooled into selling out the sovereignty to another country. Let me leave that for part 3, and next week, and we will discuss on the China and how China just manipulate state companies and state economies around the world. See you in part 3.